Welcome back to the deep dive.
Right.
We spend a lot of time on this show talking about, the hardware of the world, the visible stuff.
Right.
You drive past a massive infrastructure project, a bridge span being lifted, a tunnel boring machine, and you focus on the tangible assets, the steel, the concrete.
Which is natural. I mean, that's where the money usually goes, and it's certainly the most photogenic part of the job.
Right. But any project manager worth their salt knows that the steel and concrete are rarely what kills a project.
Mm-hmm.
You can engineer around a geological fault. You can fix a structural issue. But the soft infrastructure, the politics, the angry neighbors.
That is where the timeline actually dies.
Exactly. So today, we are looking at the invisible scaffolding that holds a major project together. We have a document on the table titled Employer Requirement E3.7 Stakeholder Management.
Sounds thrilling.
It's a Revision 01 document. It's technical, contractual, and at first glance, it looks like a dry list of phone numbers.
But when you actually read it, it reads more like a non-disclosure agreement combined with a diplomatic treaty.
It really does. It's a manifesto on control. So, our mission today is to decode this. We're going to look at the relationship between the employer, the client paying the bills, and the contractor, the builder.
Right.
And specifically, how they are allowed to talk to the rest of the world.
Right.
Because according to this document, talking isn't just a casual activity. It's a risk.
A massive risk, and I think that's the key context here. In modern infrastructure, a misquoted project manager or a poorly timed press release can tank a stock price. It can lose a mayor and election. This document exists because the employer is terrified of losing the narrative.
So let's establish the baseline. The document calls it Employer Requirement E3.7.
Mm-hmm.
What is the fundamental philosophy here? If I'm the contractor, what is my standing in the public eye?
Your standing is essentially non-existent. The document is designed to establish a single source of truth, and that source is the employer.
Right.
The contractor is essentially a silent partner. They are the hands that build, but they are not the voice that speaks.
Let's get into the specifics because the rules are incredibly explicit. Segment 1 is what I'm calling the golden rule.
Which is pretty straightforward. The employer is responsible for leading all communication unless the document specifically says otherwise.
Unless specifically stated otherwise. So the default setting is just silence.
Correct. And where you see this most aggressively enforced is with the media. We call this a media blackout.
I was reading this section, and it feels restrictive even for a corporate contract. It says, all contacts with the various media are dealt with by the employer.
Mm-hmm.
So if a local news crew shows up at the gate because, I don't know, they see a crane falling over, the site manager can't see a word.
Not a word. They are contractually gagged. The document explicitly says any questions from media organizations must be passed directly to the employer.
Wow.
The employer handles the distribution, the answering, the reporting. The contractor is basically a relay station.
But let's play that out in a non-disaster scenario. Let's say I'm the construction company. I just pulled off a world record engineering feat. I want to put that in Construction Weekly. I want to put a photo on my LinkedIn.
You have to ask for permission.
Even for LinkedIn.
The text is broad. It says, if the contractor itself wishes to spread means of communication, including publications in professional journals, visual materials such as photographs, etc., it has to align them prior to publication with the employer and submit them for approval.
That seems incredibly restrictive. I mean, social media is how these firms recruit talent. They need to show off their work.
They do, but look at it from the employer's side. Let's say the contractor posts a celebration photo of the team. But in the background of that photo, there's a worker without a helmet.
Oh, right.
Or there's a proprietary piece of technology that wasn't supposed to be public. Or maybe the site just looks messy.
Right. The internet creates a permanent record of that mistake.
Exactly. Or let's say the project is politically controversial. The employer is trying to keep a low profile, and suddenly the contractor is bragging about it on Twitter. That reflects on the client. They want to control the narrative, absolutely.
It seems like the fun part to the job are reserved for the employer, too. The document mentions official ceremonies.
Yes. Ribbon cuttings, town halls, the golden shovel moments. That is the employer's domain. The contractor assists if requested, but they are essentially the stagehands. The spotlight is for the one writing the checks.
There is another constraint here that I found really interesting from a project management perspective. The concept of turnaround time.
Oh, this is a huge friction point in these kinds of relationships.
Walk me through it. Because normally if I need to dig a hole, I just schedule the dig.
Not here. The document says that if the contractor's work requires communication, Let's say you need to close a lane of traffic, which affects the public.
Yeah.
You cannot just do it. You have to factor in the time it takes for the employer to communicate that message to the stakeholders.
So I have to schedule the PR delay into my construction schedule.
Exactly. You can't say, we are closing the road tomorrow. You have to say, we want to close the road. The employer needs, say, 10 days to notify the municipality and the residents. So we are closing the road in 11 days.
That sounds like a nightmare for agility. If you have a machine sitting idle, you can't just pivot to a new task if it requires public notice.
It creates a buffer. But again, the alternative is the contractor closing a road, nobody knows about it, the police get called, and the mayor screams at the employer. They would rather pay for the delay than deal with the political fallout.
That makes sense. It's prioritizing political capital over operational efficiency. But, and this is a big but, there are exceptions. We've established the employer is the boss.
Right.
But there are moments where the contractor must take the wheel.
Yes. The document calls this operational necessity, and this is where the bureaucracy has to take a backseat to, well, physics.
We're talking about emergency services.
Right. If the tunnel is flooding, or there's a fire, or a structural collapse, you cannot wait for the employer's PR team to draft a press release.
Please approve this request to call 911.
Exactly. The document states clearly, communication with emergency services is always the duty and responsibility of the contractor.
Which implies that the contractor needs to have those relationships built before the fire starts.
They do. They are solely responsible for aligning works with hospitals, fire departments, police, emergency responders. They have to know who to call. They have to coordinate site access. In a crisis, the hierarchy of PR just dissolves. You need direct operational lines.
There was also a very specific detail in this section that caught my eye. It mentions nautical and harbor authorities.
Yes. This gives us a clue about the nature of the project. It clearly has a maritime component, maybe a bridge, a tunnel, or a quay wall.
It mentions the deployment of pilotage.
Pilotage, that's a very specific maritime term.
For those of us who aren't sailors, what does that mean in this context?
Pilotage usually refers to bringing a specialized local pilot aboard a vessel to guide it through tricky waters, like a busy harbor or a narrow channel.
Okay.
The fact that this is in a stakeholder management document shows how granular this gets. The contractor isn't just building, they are effectively managing ship traffic.
And harbor masters are not people you want to mess with. They have absolute authority over their water.
Correct. If you block a shipping lane without coordination, you aren't just getting a fine, you're disrupting global supply chains. So the contractor is allowed and required to talk to them directly.
The document also lists a pretty wide net of other interested parties. Shipping sectors, transport sectors, nearby companies.
Basically, anyone whose accessibility and functionality might be affected. The distinction is, if you are talking about operations...
Like, hey, move your truck, we're coming through.
Exactly. The contractor handles it. If you are talking about policy or news, the employer handles it.
Okay, that brings us to the section that I think is the most common headache for any project, the complaints.
Section 4.2, the bane of every site manager's existence.
So let's say Mrs. Higgins calls up. She lives next door, and the pile driving is shaking her fine china off the shelf. She is furious. Who handles Mrs. Higgins?
This is a hybrid model. The contractor is responsible for the solution, but the employer watches over the process. The document says the contractor shall resolve complaints by third parties, but only after alignment with employer.
And there's a clock ticking here that seems incredibly aggressive, the 2-day rule.
It is very fast. The contractor must notify the employer as soon as possible, but within 2 days of receiving a complaint.
And looking at the text, they can't just send an email saying, FYI, we got a complaint.
No, that would be too easy. In that notification, they have to state what measures they will take or have already taken and the turnaround time for handling it.
So they have to present a fix almost immediately.
Yes. That puts a lot of pressure on the site team. You get an angry call on a Tuesday afternoon. By Thursday, you need to have investigated the issue, engineered a solution, maybe changing the pile driving method or installing noise barriers, and reported that plan to the client.
And then, unless they agree otherwise, the contractor is the one who has to go back to Mrs. Higgins and close the loop. Why the strict timeline? Why not just fix it when you can?
Because unresolved complaints are the sparks that start wildfires. If Mrs. Higgins feels ignored for a week, she calls the local newspaper, or she calls her cousin, who is a lawyer. The employer uses this 2-day rule to ensure that small fires don't become infernos. They want to suffocate the problem with efficiency.
It's amazing how this document tries to control the visual environment, too. We talked about press photos, but what about the physical site? Section 4.3 covers placing advertisements and building signs.
This is the no free real estate
Yeah,
clause.
contractors love this. You see it all the time. Giant banners on the scaffolding with the company logo, website, phone number. It's huge free advertising.
And this document shuts that down completely. It says the contractor is strictly forbidden from placing advertisements on the site without written permission.
But there are project signs, the big ones that say, coming soon, new bridge.
Yes, but look at the division of labor there. It's fascinating. The contractor manufactures the sign. The contractor maintains the sign. The contractor places the sign.
But who decides what it says?
Placing of texts in consultation with the employer. The employer controls the message. The contractor provides the hardware. It's the same theme again.
And there is a cleanup clause, too. Removal and disposal within 4 weeks after ending the works.
They want the site pristine. It's about brand management. Once the project is done, get your stuff and get out.
Okay, so we have the hierarchy, we have the emergency exceptions, we have the complaint clock. But here is the question that always comes up with these policy documents. How do they actually check? Is this just a PDF that sits in a drawer?
This is where we get to the product. And I think this is the most revealing part of the entire document. This is what transforms it from a set of rules into a surveillance system.
You're talking about the register?
The register contact moments stakeholders.
It's a clunky name, but the requirements are intense.
They are. The document defines communication not as an activity, but as a deliverable, a physical product, a database that must be submitted monthly.
I was looking at the required fields for this register. It's not just a log of, I talked to the harbor master.
No, let's look at the list. For every single interaction, the register must include name of the organization, specific attendees, both from the contractor side and the other party, the form of the contact meeting, phone call, email, the time, the place.
Okay, that's standard admin. But then it asks for the goal of the contact
That's the kicker.
and the action list and discuss topics.
Right. So think about the practical implication of that. You are a site superintendent. You have a quick 5-minute call with the police chief just to say, hey, we're moving the barricade at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Under this contract, you can't just hang up and get back to work. You have to open the spreadsheet, you have to log the time, you have to articulate the goal, ensure traffic safety, and then record the outcome.
That turns a 5-minute call into a 15-minute administrative task.
Exactly. And if you multiply that by the 50 calls a day a project team might make, you are talking about hundreds of man-hours per month purely dedicated to logging the fact that people spoke to each other.
Is that realistic? Or is this one of those clauses that everyone ignores until something goes wrong?
That is the million-dollar question. In practice, on a happy, on-budget project, this register probably gets filled out a bit loosely, met with city, went well.
Right.
But, and this is why the document is written this way, if the project goes south, if there's a delay claim,
Then the lawyers come out.
and the first thing they do is demand the register, because it's the audit trail. Let's say the contractor claims, we were delayed because the municipality didn't approve our permit on time.
Okay.
The employer can look at the register and say, well, according to your own data, you didn't meet with the municipality for 3 weeks in October. You didn't pursue the goal, claim denied.
Wow. So it's weaponized bureaucracy.
It creates accountability, yes, but it also forces intentionality. If you have to write down the goal of a phone call, you are going to think about that goal before you dial the number. It strips the casual nature out of conversation and makes it a contractual obligation.
It also means the employer can audit the project's social life. They can look at the report and say, why are you meeting with the environmental agency so often? Is there a problem you aren't telling us about?
Precisely. It allows them to spot smoke before they see fire.
So when we look at this document as a whole, E3.7, it feels strict. It feels cumbersome. But if we zoom out, does it actually work?
If we synthesize all this, the intent is clear. Large infrastructure projects are incredibly fragile socially.
Right.
We think of them as big, strong things made of stone and iron, but they are socially weak. One bad headline, one lawsuit from a neighbor, one miscommunication with the harbor authority, and the whole thing stops.
So this document is the insurance policy.
It is risk management. It streamlines the interface between the project and the world. It ensures that the project speaks with one voice, the employer's voice, and it turns the messy reality of human interaction into clean, auditable data in that register.
It really redefines what it means to be a good builder. You can be the best concrete pourer in the world, but if you can't fill out the stakeholder register and keep your mouth shut in front of the press, you are failing the contract.
You are. And for the learner listening to this, the takeaway is that in high-stakes environments, communication is not soft skills. It is a hard deliverable. It has deadlines, it has quality requirements, and as we saw with the register, it has a paper trail.
It's a fascinating look under the hood. We always think about the blueprints for the building, but this is the blueprint for the behavior.
And often the behavior is harder to control than the building.
Ain't that the truth? Before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with a thought experiment based on what we just discussed.
Done.
We talked about this register. The idea that every conversation has to be logged, categorized, and reported with a goal and an action list.
Yes.
Imagine if you had to do that in your own job.
Oh, that is a terrifying thought.
If every conversation you had at the office, every Slack message, every quick coffee chat had to be documented. Who did I talk to? What was the goal? What is the action item? And you had to send that to your boss every month.
It sounds like a dystopian nightmare of micromanagement.
It does. But ask yourself, how much more efficient would you be? How many pointless meetings would disappear if you had to write down the goal beforehand and realize there isn't one?
That is a double-edged sword. It might cure the meeting culture, but it might kill the culture entirely.
Is it extreme bureaucracy, or is it the only way to actually get things done without chaos? I'll let you decide. That's it for this deep dive into the hidden world of stakeholder management. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Goodbye.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.